Hello, hello. Thank you everybody for being here today. Today we're lucky enough to get to speak with Jenny, author of Mute Swans, and I don't even know where to begin with this. I know I've already said a few times to you, but I did read it in a single sitting, and it was so beautifully written. I think Steve and I went back and forth about how it was just truly literature and how it really felt like not just that you were in the moment, but I think stories like this really stand out because it allows you to kind of see the beauty of every day. It's
Hmm,
like relationships evolve and change over time. Like the person you fall in love with in your early 20s is not going to be the same person when you're 65, nor should they be. And I
that's
think
right.
your story, Mute Swans, really kind of captured that feeling and just kind of showcased how love evolves over time. So hats off to you.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted you read it in one sitting.
Yeah, I think it's especially with the way it was written, with it being, what was it, 8 decades, 4 generations. There were so many different timelines going on that when one ended,
Yes,
it's a kind of from an author's perspective, it can kind of be a risky play because as
yes.
a reader, sometimes I sit down and I speed read one section to get back to the perspective that I'm really keen on. But each section I was keen on. It was I was reading one,
Right.
going, okay,
Mm.
I want to get back to that, but we're fast forwarding to this one and I need to know what's going on here. And it all tied together so beautifully. How did you stay organized through any of that?
Oh, well, I suppose I did kind of interweave between the timelines, so I was sort
Mm.
of carrying it all in my head at the same time when I was writing it.
Yeah.
Um, and it certainly, yes, it helped to stay in the story by doing it that way. I think if I'd written it all separately and then put it together, it might not have gone as well. But I
Oh,
did kind of
interesting.
dip in and out as I was doing it. So I'm
So
glad to know it worked.
yeah, no, it absolutely works. So then, just so I'm like understanding of it, essentially, you wrote it in the order that we read it in. So
Yes.
you weren't pinning pieces together or this or that. Oh, that's unique. I like that.
I mean, I do dip in and out
Mhm.
as I'm doing it, but I do write it as one thing. So, I mean, I will, on one day, I might want to look at one time period and I'll write that. And another time, I'll maybe want to write the contemporary stuff, but I do write it in one thing. So I've got it all there in front of me.
Right.
So I can see what's going on.
Did you find any one specific timeline more exciting to write, more like easier to write compared to others?
Find them very different.
Mm.
I think when I started it, I thought that the historical stuff would be quite difficult to do because of the research. But
Mm.
actually, once you got into it, I really enjoyed that and
Yeah.
putting in all the sort of family stories and things, trying to
Mhm.
connect the characters across the generations was quite fun. So,
I believe that. Yeah,
but
like
the
you're like the puppet master over here weaving. How does this connect to this? How does this connect to
yes,
that? Did you?
yes, and
How did?
seeing sort of how, hmm,
No, no, no. Sorry, and seeing sort of how.
hmm. Well, how things happen in one generation and then they have a knock-on effect
Mhm.
into the next generation and how, history kind of replays itself over and over and you have to kind of decide whether you're going to change things or whether you're going to accept things, as they are. So,
Yeah, and
so it's
that
about actions and consequences, really.
well, and that was really nice to kind of read the butterfly effect going on because obviously, if something
Mm,
happened in your relationship 30 years ago and you never addressed it, it's going to kind of fester. It might turn into resentment. Like things are going to shift and evolve over time. But I think that's one of the really powerful elements of being able to do this over 80 years
mm,
is you might not see that shift 4, 5, 6 years in, but
mm,
after 60 years or after 30 years, it'll be apparent. And I think that's what part of what makes this very powerful is going back to what I said earlier about how love evolves and love changes. And in some instances, it's not necessarily for the best. Like some people realize
mm.
they're not meant to be together and this and that. Um, and I thought that that was really powerful as well, just because we kind of all, well, I can't speak for everybody, but I think a lot of us grow up with one kind of ideal based on the movies and this and that of what
Yeah.
relationships are, what romance is, especially, this was a book we sent out for Valentine's Day, and you have like the fiery, honeymoon period, all that kind of stuff, and then you have reality. And I think that that
Yeah.
was really nice juxtaposition there.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of everything, isn't there, really?
Mhm.
Because you've got the relationships of George and Scylla in the historical piece, and you take that right through because you see right to the point where they both die.
Right.
And then when you've got the next generation and you've got Miriam and Michael, you take that right through, but that goes to the point where actually they find that it's not working, and so they go their separate ways. So then you see the sort of second chance romance then in that generation, and then it kind of goes on again and goes to their children, and you start to see how their relationships are starting to
Mhm.
form and what's happening for them. So it's quite interesting for me to follow really what happened in society across all that time as
Oh,
well,
I
to
believe
see
that.
to see how they're influenced by what's going on around them and how things change across the generations.
Well,
So
how did you go about the research?
um, I kind of research as I write because I never really know what I'm going to write until I
Yeah.
do it. So so I'm always researching at the same time. So it's a kind of stop-start
Mm.
process as you go along. More so obviously for the historical
Yeah,
stuff than
right. But I
the new
think
contemporary.
it makes total sense. And I think from the element of I spent a few years in the UK, but obviously I wasn't around 60 years ago. I can't speak for back then. But as a reader, even though we knew it took place over this time period, it never felt inaccessible. And
Hmm.
I think one of the big things is that language and syntax might change over the decades, vocabulary might change, but you wrote it in a way where it was just very accessible and very easy for someone born and raised in the year, let's say like 2000 beyond, to
Hmm.
understand what was going on in the 1950s. And I think that that's a really powerful tool because how else are they going to learn about it if it's inaccessible?
Well, yeah, I'm really delighted that you've said that because I didn't really envisage when I wrote it that it would appeal to younger people who hadn't
Mm.
sort of seen at least part of that process.
Mhm.
And it's amazing to find that, yes, that there is something in it for different people at different ages and that they can relate to what's happened all
Well,
those years ago, really. But
yeah, well, and I think it's to your point, history repeats itself. And Lord, we
mm,
we, we see it today. Like it's incredibly
yes,
frustrating. Um,
yes.
but well, and I think to that point, I wanted to ask because Mute Swans has been out for forgive me, I don't remember.
The ebook came out middle of September, and the print copies came out in January.
And how do you think? Well, I guess what one of these questions is what surprised you the most about readers' reactions or interpretations of it?
I suppose the emphasis on the romance has
Mm,
been interesting.
mm,
Um, I just didn't consider myself a romance writer at all, but when I started writing that, I really enjoyed it, and maybe
mm.
that's come across because certainly people are enjoying the romance element in it. So yes, it it's yeah. You never know, do you really, what people are going to make of it, and everybody has their own interpretations.
Mhm.
And a lot of people have told me how much, probably more my generation, how it resonates with them because they remember the things that are in the book.
Yeah,
So
there's an element of nostalgia there, of course.
yes, yes. So I suppose it does appeal to different ages because you see different things in it, and that hopefully is what people are enjoying.
No,
So
of course. And I think one of the things that we've kind of learned over the years of doing this is when it comes to your audience in particular, everyone like, oh, I've written this book for this audience or this or that. You can write it for whatever, but the audience is going to decide who likes it and who doesn't.
yes, yes,
And the amount of times we've had authors who goes, I am writing this story for like women aged 25 to 34, and then it's just the exact opposite. And it's like, well,
yes,
you don't know. You never know until you actually kind of take that leap, put your book out there, and see how it's interpreted and what happens. And I think that's part of the scary thing of being an author is that
mm,
it's a hard profession. It's a hard skill to be a perfectionist in because everyone's going to interpret it differently. And I
yes,
think the sooner you rip off that Band-Aid, the better of an experience you'll have. Because at the end of the day, you're writing a story that you want to write. If you write to art, if you write to audience, write to market, eh, it's not for everyone.
Yes. Yeah. No, and also you'd have to write a lot more quickly than I do to write to market. And you never know, yes, what's going to sell at any one time. So you do have to write for you and write the best story that you can and then put it out there and hope that it will be well received. And
Exactly. And you learn from the comments and the experience, and you do it again in the next one if you so choose to. And I
you
think
do.
to your point of how long it took you to write it, this did start as your dissertation.
It did.
So
Yes.
how did that come around? How did that evolve? Walk us through that process a little bit.
Yes. I mean, that's quite a long process, really. Because I started off thinking that I would be a children's author, and
Mhm.
I wrote a children's novel. And yeah, it was one of those that when you finished it, you think, no, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And that was when the MA opportunity came up to go and study creative writing, and they weren't doing anything for children. It was an adult course. So I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And so Mute Swans was the dissertation piece. And that came about really from having to uh, decide something that would be a literary story for the dissertation. So I did some research and I found some statistics on marriage and divorce. And I was just totally amazed at how many people got divorced when they were reaching the point of retirement. And it was kind of a
Oh,
staggering
interesting.
number. And I thought, well, that's quite interesting possibly to write about then,
Mhm.
because that wouldn't have occurred to me that people would get divorced then, because you would think if they got that far, that they might.
Right. In my head, it's like if you, for me, obviously I've done no research on this, but it always seems to be if you do have children, it's once the children turn 18, that's kind of where you make or break. But if you decide to stay with it another 10 years, well, at that point, like, yeah, you might as well. Like
Yes, you think you're in for it now. But yes, so that surprised me how many people did actually decide to make the break at the
Mhm.
point of retirement. So that was really where the story started. And then it kind of grew backwards and forwards from that point. So
Mhm. Interesting.
I
And was
always
there
knew that Miriam and Michael wouldn't stay together because that was the point that I started from. But other than that, I didn't know where the story was going.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up is that
Mm.
what was the initial starting point to this? Where in the timeline? And then also, did you know what was going to happen? Like, or were you just kind of winging this as it went?
I do kind of wing it, yes.
Mhm.
And once I kind of decided what the themes were going to be, I suppose, and that helps you to
Yeah.
decide what the story is. So I decided that it was going to be about how well couples communicate largely,
Mhm.
and how when you've got good communication, things, obviously go better, and when you don't, things don't go so well. So
Right.
in the novel, you can kind of look at the different couples and you can see how well they are communicating.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, there's
see,
definitely you can see
see.
who's committed to it and who is just there because it's convenient or whatnot.
Yes, yes.
Um, and I think like that's one of the things that really struck me was like kind of elaborating from what you're saying about communication. And I think it's one of the things I've experienced as because how old I'm 29, I'm still young. But as I've gotten older, I have learned how easy it is to kind of or how yeah, I guess how easy it is to say goodbye to some people without realizing that it's the last time you'll say goodbye. And I think
Yeah.
that there's elements of this story that really hit at that note, where
Mm,
you'll get like almost a snapshot of somebody's life, and
yes.
then that's it. Then you continue on with yours because that's all it was a snapshot. And I
Mm,
see a lot of beauty in just those little moments because you can't truly commit yourself as much as you have the right intention. You can't truly commit yourself to every single person that walks into your life. There's just not enough bandwidth for it.
no, no. And they certainly do pop in and out in the story, don't they? And I mean, I started the story with Sarah in 1969,
Mm,
and that she's in the first part of the story, and then you don't see her again until almost at the end.
Yeah.
So when you've
And
almost forgotten that she was there at all, and then she comes back.
you'll have to forgive me because it's been a
Mm.
minute since I've read this, but was his name Ryan? There was like a I want to say a kid that was kind of, you know,
Ryan,
not
yes.
yeah, kind of having some bad decision making. In I want to say it was Brighton and Hove. Um,
Um, well, Ryan wasn't in the Brighton and Hove bit. Ryan was he was brother to James, who ran
Yep.
the cafe,
Yes,
and
yes.
yeah, and their parents had split up
Mhm.
because the father had found out that he was only dad to the elder brother and not to the younger one. So the father left home, and then that left Ryan at a sort of critical point
Mhm.
because teenager about to do his exams and everything. So he went off the rails
Yep.
as teenagers do. And so that was one of the themes, really, because I I give a lot of the characters second chances in the story, and so you
Mhm.
see how Ryan has gone off the rails and gets into trouble and sort of gets into petty drug dealing and things, and how his brother steps in and decides to um, have Ryan to live with him and try and turn things round.
Mhm.
And so Ryan, yeah, was quite an interesting character, and it'd be nice in a way to see how he gets on, wouldn't it? To know
Yeah. Well, and
what
I
his
and I
what his
think
feelings are
that's
on.
I think that's to the service of the story is that here I am months later. Okay, I don't remember the exact, but you still think about it. So I wonder what did happen because this, although it's fiction, it's very grounded in reality. And I think that's part of what makes stories like this so powerful is, okay, this isn't my experience. This could very well be a cousin of mine's experience. I have no idea, because you
Yeah.
don't know how many lives you're in that peripheral piece of yourself.
Mm.
And I
Yes.
think that's kind of a fun little thing to kind of ponder. Like I have the moment of how many, like if you go to a tourist attraction or whatnot, how many photos are you in the background of?
Yes. 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 Quite a few. Yes. The idea of yes, the how things can go differently and how yes, in an instant lives can change and you can go one way or you can go the other,
Mhm.
and sometimes you get another chance and
Yeah.
sometimes you don't. So
And I think that's the powerful moment behind it. Now, without prying too much, I am curious.
yes.
How much of this was kind of inspired by your own story, your own life, like real life diaries, family stories, or was it just entirely imagined?
The structure, I would say, came from my family, if you like,
Mhm.
because I'm a mum of two daughters. So
Mhm.
it was quite easy for me to write a story of a mum with two daughters. That was quite good for a first novel, if you like. But then what happened is entirely fictional. You
Okay.
wouldn't recognize you wouldn't recognize any of my family in the story, but it was useful to have a structure.
Mhm.
That's why I set it locally as well, because it's the sort of case of write what you know,
Yeah.
apart from the bits that are in Brighton, which was nice to kind of step out and let Miriam be a different person in a different place. So,
Well, that would be our experience living somewhere else and visiting somewhere else. It's a new thing for us as well. Steve wanted to make it absolutely clear that he thinks you did Devon and Brighton justice, and
thank
he
you.
he wanted
Yes.
because he's Scottish. He's out of Glasgow, and he was a big fan of just how quintessentially British the story was.
Uh,
Um, I think and like this is obviously as an American, I spent some time in the UK, so it felt relatable. And I think part of what made this so great is that it's accessible regardless of whether or not you spent time in the UK, because these are kind of themes that transcend borders, transcend generations. Like everyone has experienced this at some point in their life,
yeah.
because I think to the point that you were making earlier, a story about romance, I see this very much as a story about love. And
Mm,
love outside of like the romantic love, you have love with family, love with friends. You have like the hot, fiery love. You got the slow burn. You have the just staying together because it's comfortable and doing things for the greater good, as it were. So it's interesting to see how this story could take place anywhere in the world.
yes.
Everyone's got family drama.
Mm.
I'd say most people have family drama, and if they don't, like, Uh,
Yes.
so I'm just going through his little list of questions here. Because he had one about, oh, that's what it was. Because we're speaking about unspoken truths and frankly silence. Um,
Mm.
and this comes back to the point of lack of communication or vice versa. What is the idea? Like, what is the idea of mute? Because obviously the story name is Mute Swans.
Yes.
How does it play into not just silence, but also in particular women's silence?
Well, it really more plays more into the couples, really. It
Mm,
because Miriam and Michael are the central point,
mm,
and they're the ones who have the major problem with communication. So they're a couple like Swans mate for life, although in the end Miriam and Michael did go their separate ways, but
mm.
also the Swans are mute, so they don't speak. So that was the premise. And while swans
Okay.
do make a noise, they're called mute swans, and
Oh, the more you know. I mean, and I guess to the point about Miriam and Michael not staying together, because like you said, that was one of the starting points of the
yes, that
story.
was a given. Yeah.
Um, do you find that how do you feel about them having their second chance and their happy ending?
Well, obviously I wrote it, so
Yeah,
I
no,
was
of
quite
course.
happy with that. Um, I'm possibly it's a cop out to give everybody a happy ending, but
Mm,
that's the kind of story that I like to read.
mhm.
Um, I mean, my next story will be less tied up neatly than this one,
I was
but
gonna say, isn't your upcoming story, if I remember, it's a crime novel,
it
isn't
is a crime novel. Yeah.
it?
Yes. It'd still be a literary, it'd still be a character-led one.
Mhm.
So it won't be lots of bangs and flashes. It's all about, again, actions and consequences
Yeah,
and
yeah.
across time. But no, that one's going to be a fascinating one to do because obviously that's a very specific structure for a crime novel. So that one I do have to write in an entirely different way. I
Well,
can't just bumble my way through that one.
no, unfortunately, those because
Yes,
you're gonna have as a reader, I'll go through trying to connect the dots. And if the dots haven't been
yes,
connected, I'm gonna sit there panic.
yes.
Um, and I guess to the point before I get off track here, because I want to follow up about the crime novel. I want to ask about Miriam.
Mm.
And just in general characters, because you have plenty throughout the story. How did you find developing them? Because here you go, you have a four generation point where at some instances we talk about Miriam as a child, sometimes talk about her as an
Yes.
adult. How did you find character development as an author in that? Like did the characters take up a mind of their own at some point, or was this still
I
like
think they do.
following?
I think they do kind of come to life, don't they? They almost become real people for you,
Mhm.
and so you imagine what they would do in each circumstance, and then you kind of take it from there. But so they do live in your head, and they become like a real family.
Yeah.
Which, and so yeah, you do kind of develop a relationship with them, and you want them to have a happy ending, but that's
Mhm.
not always the right thing to do. But I wanted to in this one because yeah, I suppose that's me really. I like to feel at the end that yes, you've enjoyed that and you can go away happy, which you can't always do in a story, but I thought it was right for this one. That
Oh, and fair. I think that's where indie has its pros and cons.
mm,
And
mm,
because I've read enough indie novels now where I know if they want to, they can kill off the parents at the end or this or that. They don't have to fit to a specific market.
yes,
So
yeah,
because of that, I'm jaded where I'm reading this, I'm like, oh, this could all go south very fast.
yes, yes,
I'm grateful that you also stuck with the happier ending kind of thing because I don't want to sit there like just processing and processing and processing.
yes,
Um,
yes.
but there was a point where we're reaching the end of the book, and I'm like, if I don't have any update on Lonnie, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yes. The old minor characters again, isn't it? Coming back.
Well, and
Yes,
I think it was quite nice that you have like that introduction, and then it just settles and it sits with you for the rest of the story, and then it makes an appearance. And I don't want
yes.
to say it's what I expected or not what I expected, because by that point I didn't know what to expect. I just figured it wouldn't have gone well, and it didn't.
And
And
didn't.
Um, but I think it was very, it just felt so real. Like maybe not the very specific instance of what he went off to do, but it felt so real and like that selfish light, the young love, the frankly just using someone to get what he wants.
Yes,
And she has such good intentions and he doesn't. And ultimately, whether or not you believe in karma, you might have paid a price for
yes,
it.
yeah,
But I think that's what makes the story so powerful is that it's so rooted in reality. Like we've all had, unfortunately, for better or worse, those negative romantic experiences
yes,
and just negative experiences with love in general. And I think I talk to friends about this all the time, like the idea of love and how it truly is like you're trusting someone
mm,
and you're
mm,
you're trusting someone to not hurt you because they're fully capable of it if they choose to. And
yes,
sometimes they choose to. And
yes,
are you gonna get upset with yourself for believing in them? Or are you gonna be upset with them for hurting you? Because regardless, at the end of the day, you only have yourself. It doesn't matter
yes,
if you're 60 years into a relationship. If you turn out to be a terrible human being, they still have every right to leave. I think there's that
mm,
level of commitment that obviously the longer you go, the more entwined you become. But
yes,
there is no ultimate, like, I will never, ever, ever leave. I feel like, I mean, there might
mm.
be, but I don't know, you have to keep showing up. You can't take it for granted.
Well, that's right. I mean, the story is really told from a woman's point of view, as you
Mhm.
picked up earlier. It does follow the women right through. And there were times when I thought the men were threatening to take over, so I had to
Yeah.
pull it back a bit because I suppose it is a little bit biased towards the woman's point of view, but then that's because it does cover all the generations, and so
Mhm.
women had far more limited opportunities in the
Yeah.
historical piece. And it was nice to show how they have choices now and how things have changed, and how Scylla with George,
Mhm.
maybe Scylla would have left George in a
Yeah,
different lifetime,
exactly,
in another
exactly.
generation. So it's interesting to be able to follow how relationships can change
Mhm.
across time because you've given permission, aren't you, to be able to walk away. Whereas in years before, you didn't really have that opportunity. So
No, and I think that's a really, really good point, is that they wouldn't have broken up, or they wouldn't have stayed together in the modern day. Whereas Michael and Miriam would not have broken up in the previous generations.
yes, that's
And
right.
and you see that unhappy marriage and this and that. Like I don't want to speak for everybody and I don't want to put this online, but like yeah, like should all of our grandparents still be together? I don't know. Like
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of power in the idea of learning to love each other. I think there's
yeah,
a lot of compromise that happens in any relationship, whether it's with friends or partners or whatever family, whatever it may be. But there also comes a point where you have to set boundaries and have to be able to walk away. And I think all of this being written from a woman's perspective is really important because you sit there between Miriam and Michael and you go, "Oh my God, how are you doing this?" Like, like what? Because at that point, like, what is the shining light that you're waiting for?
mm,
A lot of people will stay in these relationships because they'll think, "Oh, but it was so good at this moment," and you're
yeah,
you're you're holding on to hope and you're holding on to one moment in history and hoping that it'll go back, but it just never does. And it's like, at what point do you make a
there
change?
you
How do
go.
you even go about that?
Yes, I mean, I tried to show that Michael was kind of the dinosaur of the generation, if you like, because
Mhm.
they're the middle generation, and he's kind of got the attitudes going back to the previous generation,
Mhm.
whereas Miriam is a little bit more flexible and she can adapt her views and sort of move with the times, whereas Michael couldn't. So they did have this kind of tension where they just weren't communicating, were they really? They were talking, but it just wasn't hitting because they were in different places. So
And obviously, as someone who isn't married, doesn't live with a partner or anything, I feel like when I get there, I would hate for it to slowly evolve into a way where you're basically glorified roommates. But I don't know.
yes,
Like everyone's
yes,
relationship is different. Everyone's relationship changes. And I think one of the biggest things that your story touched on is just a financial element to all of this as well, especially from
Mm,
a woman's
mm.
perspective. If
Yes, because that's historical, isn't
Mhm,
it? That
mhm,
women didn't have the choices
exactly.
financially, and so that's changed
I think
across the
that,
generations.
and that's such a powerful thing and such an important thing to remember for people is the fact that you
Mm.
could be in this relationship for 40 years, be extremely unhappy, but you've been a mother, you haven't been earning, so you can't
Yes,
leave.
yes,
And then whether it's subconscious or on purpose, I think it leans more subconscious personally, but obviously every situation is different. Like men will take advantage of that, or they'll turn a blind eye to it. Um, because they know they can get away with a few extra things here and there because you're not going to leave over this, you have nowhere to go. And it's a terrifying prospect of you
yes.
either have
Mm.
a family or have a career. And traditionally, obviously, like you said, it's changing now. But historically, you had one kind of path and you put so much trust into a man you might truly not know, or it could be one thing, then the moment you close the door, be someone completely different.
Yes, which I tried to show that with George as well
Mhm.
because George, there was the typical romance when Scylla and George met, and that was very romantic, and they assumed it would be like that forever. But of course, George was serially unfaithful throughout their marriage, and Scylla stayed with it,
Yeah,
and yeah, and so that was all about they wanted different things, but they weren't able to communicate it. So George did love Scylla, but he wasn't able to be faithful to her. And Scylla loved George, but she wanted something different because she wanted fidelity.
yeah.
So yeah, it is all about the communication really.
I
And
think
when I went to the last generation, the youngest generation, and I've got Becky, who was at university
mm,
with Callum, and Becky gets pregnant whilst at university. And so that looks like an irresponsible thing to do. But
yeah.
in actual fact, they are the couple in the story who are kind of destined to be together all the way
Yeah,
through
they're the
because
ones that actually communicate, actually do
they've
things
got the
for each
great
other, this and that.
communication
Yeah,
right
yeah,
from the start. And so yes, they're together all the way through and they're happy all the way through.
yeah. Right.
So
Like,
yeah, that's
don't get me wrong, it might not be practical to have a child during uni, but
oh no, no,
it's very
I'm
doable.
not recommending
Like,
it.
uh,
But
but like people do it all the time. Like it's very manageable, and I think it ultimately comes down to the person you're with. I
yes,
definitely.
yeah.
I know people who their relationship could be on the rocks, so they go, "Oh, let's get married. This will fix things," or "Oh, let's have a baby.
Mm,
This could fix things."
mm,
And it's like, no, you gotta. Your
no,
relationship is gonna stay on the rocks. Adding stress to it isn't gonna change anything. It's just gonna make it more difficult.
yes.
They put strains on people. Um, I am looking at the time now though, and I will say we have a 4 minute timer left.
Right,
So
yes.
I know, and it flies by. It's such a good story. It's easy to get to fall into the weeds of it. Um, Talk to me a little bit about the crime novel. Do we have a name? Do we have a release date?
Well, we have a working title.
Okay.
It won't have, until I've actually finished it, it won't be a final title. It's called Brackenwell at the moment.
Brackenwell. Yeah.
It's set in a small town.
Mhm.
And yeah, I can't tell you too much without
Fair.
giving anything away, but it is a detective novel story. And again, it's the main detective is a female, so it will be. It's similar to Mute Swans in that sort of sense, same sort of characters, and although um, it's in a village, so you've got a lot more characters in it,
Yeah.
but you'll be following the development of the characters and the incidents.
Mhm.
You'll be finding out not only what happened, but why it happened, and following it through again. That something that happens years ago will have consequences much later. So it kind of follows the same sort of pattern, but very definitely a crime novel. So it's fun to write
Yeah.
and fun to research, and I'm looking forward to bringing all that together.
Oh,
And
well, we're looking forward to it as well.
yes,
I will. I've got your website, your social media. I'm gonna put it all in the little description below for
Right?
readers who like the story, want to reach out to you and this and that. A little bit of a selfish question I had in the last 2 minutes. There's a lot
Right.
of pastries, and obviously one of the notes you included was a recipe. Do you have a
Yeah.
favorite British pastry, favorite British candy, dessert, cookie, whatever it may be?
Whoa. Well, I certainly like the ginger cookies that I
Yeah.
did because they're very popular.
Mm.
Um, I like desserts. I suppose I used to do a lot of baking years
Mm.
ago, so I used to make a lot of cakes, and some of the cakes feature in the story. There's a Victoria sponge in there,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
the Union Jack on the top of the cake, things like that. I used to used to do a lot of baking, so that's the fun parts in the story, isn't it? Really.
Well, you gotta balance it out. And then with the final minute, was
Mm.
there an element of the story that was the most nostalgic for you?
Most nostalgic. Ooh. Possibly where I opened it with the investiture in
Mm.
1969, the investiture of Prince Charles. I actually remember that. So so that
Fair.
was quite fun to write.
Yeah,
So yeah,
there doesn't matter if the sun sets or sun rises, there will always be some form of drama with the royal
oh
family.
certainly.
But
Yes.
for those of you that missed it or that are sticking around till the end, just a huge thank you again, and thank you to you, Jenny, for joining and for participating in everything.
No, thank you so
We're
much.
very much looking forward to everything that's to come. But
Yes.
in case you missed it, story is Mute Swans, and just I should have said this earlier. It's a beautiful cover. Hats off to your cover artist. Really like how they went about it. Um, I think it just plays to everything,
Hmm.
especially with a little clock in the middle and everything. It was
Yes.
hats off to him, hats off to him.
Yeah,
But
I was very pleased with that. Yes. She did a good job.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course. But a huge thank you again, and we'll stay in touch. We'll speak soon. Thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ryan.